I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with my 25-year-old boyfriend. I'm taking all our money with me. The message flashed across my screen at 3 a.m. local time in the South China Sea, just after I'd wrapped up a grueling 14-hour shift offshore. My hands still smelled like crude oil when I read the text from Jordan, my husband of 17 years. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't even blink. At 3 a.m. in the South China Sea, I stared at my phone while the steel deck of the platform thrummed beneath my boots. We just shut down one of the compressors after a maintenance drill. I was exhausted, soaked in sweat, and looking forward to 4 hours of sleep in my cramped cabin. Then the text came. I'm leaving you. Moving to Miami with my 25-year-old boyfriend. I've transferred all our money. I deserve this. You've been gone for years. A kiss emoji at the end like it was some kind of joke. My name is Natalie Tran, 49 years old, and for the past 22 years, I've worked offshore rigs from the Gulf of Thailand to the coast of Australia. 2 decades of working rotations of spending 2 months offshore, then scrambling to live a normal life during my 3 weeks home. It was never glamorous, but it gave us security. It gave Jordan, my husband of 17 years, a life free from worry, and apparently time to plan a clean getaway. I stared at the message, letting the nausea crawl up my throat. Then I typed back 2 words. Good luck. I turned off my phone. No tears. No panic. Just silence. Back in my cabin, I peeled off my coveralls and stood under the cold shower. Let the salt and sweat wash off. Let the reality settle in. He took everything. Our joint account had $173,000 the last time I checked. My savings, emergency funds, my daughter's college fund, all gone. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my bunk staring at the flickering light in the hallway. Around 4:30 a.m., I opened my laptop and logged into the private email I shared only with my cousin Min, a financial consultant back in Houston. Winter protocol. It's time. That was all I wrote. 12 minutes later, his reply landed. Already tracking. Don't respond to him. We'll lock it down. I shut the laptop and lay back. Just breathe, Nat. Just breathe. At breakfast, the guys noticed something was off. I didn't touch my eggs. Didn't say much. But no one asked. Out here we all had ghosts. Back in the control room, I reviewed pressure logs like nothing had happened. The shift had to go on. Safety didn't care that my marriage had detonated at sea. But behind my calm face, the wheels were turning. Jordan thought he'd emptied everything. He thought I was thousands of miles away with no way to fight back. What he didn't know was that I had been preparing for this since the first time he accidentally hit a credit card bill 5 years ago. What he didn't know was that only half of our financial story was visible. And I never play a game without my own endgame planned. Not ever. I didn't touch my food for 2 days. Instead, I buried myself in the shift logs, calibrating sensors, overseeing system resets, pretending everything was normal. But in every pause, every moment of quiet, the same image returned, Jordan's message. That kiss emoji like some kind of victory flag. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Min was already moving. We had planned for this long ago, during a drunken night at a family barbecue when he asked what I'd do if someone ever tried to wipe me out financially. I'd vanish, then come back with the receipts, I'd said. Well, time to prove it. Min filed an emergency freeze request on the joint account. It wouldn't recover what was gone, but it would stop further damage. He also sent alerts to every financial institution we were connected to: banks, retirement funds, insurance agencies. Then he got to work digging. Jordan thought the $173,000 was all there was. He didn't know about the 2 custodial accounts I'd opened in our daughter's name, or the trust set up in my mother's maiden name, or the offshore account tied to my royalties from consulting in Indonesia. None of it illegal. All declared. Just invisible to someone who never asks questions. By the 5th day offshore, Min sent his first update. He's moved money to an account in his sister's name. Classic move. Also, he listed your house for sale. Without telling you. I blinked at the screen. My house. The one I paid off a decade ago. I felt a numbness spreading up my chest, not quite rage. Just disbelief. Don't worry, Min continued. Title's still in your name. He forged a signature on the listing form. We'll file by Monday. I shut the laptop and stared at the wall. I wasn't dealing with a mistake. I was dealing with a strategy. Jordan wasn't just leaving. He was executing a plan. A rehearsed multi-step betrayal. And I'd slept next to it every night, oblivious. That night, Jackson, the floor chief, finally pulled me aside. "You're burning through shifts like you're avoiding land," he said. "Everything okay?" I met his eyes and gave a small smile. "Let's just say land's not where I left it." He didn't ask anything else. That night I messaged my daughter Emma. Just a quick check-in. "How's school?" I asked. She replied right away. "Okay. But Dad hasn't answered my calls. Did something happen?" I didn't reply right away. How do you tell your child that the man who taught her to ride a bike just emptied her college fund and ran off with someone half his age? Eventually I typed, "We'll talk soon, sweetie. Just focus on class. I've got things handled." And I did. What Jordan didn't realize was that I'd spent 20 years learning how to fix broken systems under pressure. And now I had one more to repair. My life. 2 days before my rotation ended, I received a call from Min. His tone was sharp, clipped. No brotherly teasing, no sidelong jokes. "You need to prepare yourself," he said. I found the texts. "What texts?" I asked, though I already had a sinking feeling. "Between Jordan and his new project," he said bitterly. "Apparently, your husband's 25-year-old babe is not just a gym instructor. She's also an aspiring influencer. And not very smart." He sent over a folder of screenshots. They were synced to my old Apple ID, the one Jordan used when setting up his second phone last year. He never changed the password. I opened them on my bunk. It was all there. Messages back and forth about starting fresh, how I wouldn't see it coming, how Jordan could use her illness or some emotional story to get sympathy from the court. There was even one message suggesting maybe we speed things up. If something happens offshore, she won't be around to contest anything. I reread that one 4 times. Jordan wasn't just leaving me. He was gambling on me not coming back. I stared at the wall, trying to steady my breathing. The rig hummed underfoot. The air smelled of diesel, salt, and betrayal. "Anything actionable?" I asked Min over the satellite phone. "There's enough here for a civil claim. Possibly criminal if we play it right. I've got a lawyer lined up in Ho Chi Minh City. Name's Tao. She used to handle oil company disputes. Knows offshore law like the back of her hand. Book her," I said. 2 days later, I stepped off the helipad and onto dry land. Min was waiting with a burner phone, a fresh SIM, and a folder stuffed with court documents. "Welcome back," he said, and handed me a cup of strong black coffee. "You're officially invisible now." I stayed in a serviced apartment in Saigon under a different name for 3 days while Tao and Min finalized our first filings. Restraining orders, emergency account freezes, and a petition to challenge the forged house sale. Meanwhile, Jordan was panicking. He tried to withdraw the remaining funds from our daughter's education account. Denied. Tried to access our insurance policy. Flagged. Even attempted to log into one of my consulting portals and failed the 2-factor authentication. I watched it all through security alerts forwarded from Min's system. He was thrashing, and I hadn't even made my real move yet. On the 4th day, Tao smiled across the table and said, "It's time." She slid a new file across the table. Full asset documentation, ownership history, and a timeline of financial deception. We were going to bury him in evidence. Not out of vengeance, but to make sure he never did this to another woman again. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was breathing air that didn't belong to someone else. I landed in Los Angeles 36 hours after my contract ended. My cousin Alina met me at the terminal, holding a coffee in one hand and a folder in the other. "He's been calling non-stop," she said, passing me a burner phone. "Your regular number's probably glowing red." We climbed into her car, and I flipped through the folder. The bank had frozen the transfer to Zach's new account, flagged as suspicious because of the sudden withdrawal size and the foreign location on the originating IP address. A minor miracle, really. "He doesn't know you're back?" she asked, merging onto the freeway. "No one does. Except you and Max," I replied, naming my lawyer. Alina glanced at me. "Then we've got a head start." At her apartment in Pasadena, I plugged in my laptop and accessed the private server Max and I set up years ago. Everything was still intact: financial documents, property records, even the prenup agreement. Zach never bothered reading when he signed it. But Alina had something else. "He's been using your Netflix again," she said dryly. "And guess what? He never changed the Apple ID on his new phone. Your cloud storage is syncing everything." Within minutes, we had access to a goldmine of information. Text messages, photos, and GPS logs. Zach and his new investment partner, Amanda, had documented everything. Furniture they planned to sell, cars they were liquidating, even vacation plans once they cashed out of this boring chapter. It was all smug, rehearsed, and stupidly incriminating. One conversation stopped me cold. A message from Amanda. "Worst case, she never comes back from the rig. It's dangerous work anyway." Zach replied, "Exactly. Either way, we win." I sat still for a moment, fingers clenched around the mouse. I thought betrayal was the worst part. I was wrong. The calculated way they hoped I'd just vanish? That turned everything into war. I emailed Max with the subject, "Initiate Protocol Ember." By the next morning, he had filed an emergency asset freeze, petitioned for immediate divorce proceedings, and submitted a digital forensics report to the local police regarding the forged withdrawals and life insurance modifications. That evening, we watched my home's security camera feed. I'd installed the system myself 2 years ago during my last visit home. Zach probably assumed I couldn't access it from the Middle East. From Alina's living room, I watched him lounging by the pool with Amanda, sipping bourbon from a crystal glass that my late mother had left me. They laughed, kissed, made toasts. Toast to what exactly? Fraud? Theft? Hubris? I sent one message to Max, ready for the reveal. He replied instantly, "Papers will be served at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Your call if you want to be there." I didn't need to think twice. I slept 4 hours that night, then dressed in the navy suit Zach used to call my boardroom armor. Alina drove me to a discreet vantage point across from our house. My neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, led us into her upstairs sunroom with a direct view of the driveway. At 9:58 a.m., a sheriff's car pulled in behind Zach's BMW. 10 a.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. Zach opened it with that stupid confident smirk, which vanished when he saw the uniform. Amanda appeared behind him, holding a glass of champagne. I could almost hear her gasp when the court official handed them both packets of papers: asset seizure, restraining order, divorce summons. Then I stepped into view. From across the street, Zach locked eyes with me. I smiled. He paled. Amanda dropped her glass. Game on. The plane touched down in Houston at 5:45 a.m. I stepped off with a small carry-on and a heart full of steel. My cousin Justine was already waiting outside baggage claim. She handed me a burner phone and a plain manila folder. "You're officially invisible," she said. "Only I and your attorney know you're here." We drove in silence for a while, the Texas skyline slowly waking up around us. I didn't ask about Everett. Justine offered the update anyway. "He's been calling your number nonstop. Left 10 voicemails yesterday, all about how this is just a phase, how you'll come to your senses." I didn't respond. I was already scanning the folder. Inside, a summary of financial activity, screenshots of messages between Everett and a woman saved as Babe, and a real estate listing. Our home, listed just 2 days prior, at 20% below market rate. "He forged your signature on the documents," Justine added. "Classic desperation move. He wanted a quick sale to fund the escape." I clenched my jaw. "And the money?" "Mostly frozen. Your lawyers filed emergency motions. But we need your physical signature on a few documents before the court freezes the LLC Everett transferred the home equity funds into." We arrived at my attorney's office just after 7:30. Mr. Morales was already in his conference room, files spread out like a battlefield. "Everett's lawyer filed for exclusive occupancy of the home," he said without preamble. "Claimed you abandoned him, that you were emotionally volatile, controlling, and financially abusive." "Cute," I said dryly. Morales slid a countermotion toward me. "We've filed to dismiss on the grounds of perjury, with GPS data proving you were overseas continuously. We've also compiled bank records, phone logs, and digital correspondence to challenge every claim." "Good," I replied. "Let's bury him in the truth." As we finalized filings, Justine tapped her phone. He's just posted on Facebook a picture of himself on our patio, sipping from that whiskey you brought back from Scotland. Caption says, "Out with the old, in with the bold." The gall. "He's not bold," I muttered. "He's borrowed." We filed everything by 10 a.m. At 11:15, Morales received confirmation that the judge had approved the emergency asset freeze and ordered Everett to appear in court within 48 hours. As a precaution, I had my old neighbor Harold text me updates from across the street. "Moving truck just left," he reported. "But the house is still full." He was stalling, still hoping I'd cave, still thinking I was the same woman who once forgave him for disappearing for days, to clear his head. That woman no longer existed. By evening, I was safely tucked into a small Airbnb across town, every detail carefully planned. I wasn't hiding. I was watching and waiting, because now the next move was mine. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because of stress, but because the strategy was in motion and my mind wouldn't let go. As I lay in the unfamiliar Airbnb bed, the ceiling above me became a chessboard. And Everett? He was still moving pawns, unaware the queen had already flanked him. By 6 a.m. I was dressed in black slacks, a slate gray blouse and a long trench coat. The courtroom hearing was set for 9 a.m., but I had another stop first. The house I'd bought, the home he tried to sell out from under me. Harold welcomed me into his kitchen with strong coffee and stronger words. "He's still there," Harold muttered, peering through the blinds. "Saw him out by the garage last night, loading a few boxes into his car. Trying to grab the valuables before the hearing," I said, sipping the coffee. "But the movers already hauled most of it." "Yeah. And your antique chest? The one from your grandmother?" "Gone." Harold nodded. "Tuesday." I clenched my mug so hard my knuckles whitened, then exhaled slowly. "Let it go, Maeve. Focus." At 8:50 a.m., I arrived at the Harris County Courthouse. My attorney, Mr. Morales, met me with his usual calm precision. "Everett's lawyer filed a request for emergency occupancy this morning. We'll argue that he attempted to liquidate marital assets without consent and filed false domestic abuse claims. And the forged documents? They'll come up in our countersuit. But first, we freeze him." We walked into the courtroom at exactly 9:01. Everett was already seated with his lawyer. He looked surprised to see me. Not shocked but rattled. Like someone who expected to fight a ghost and found a flesh-and-blood opponent instead. The judge, a stern woman named Linda Thorne, wasted no time. "Mrs. Ellis, your husband claims abandonment. Yet evidence provided by your employer places you abroad for the past 47 days. "Yes, Your Honor," I answered. "And before that, I was fulfilling contracted rotations overseas." He knew the schedule. He had my itineraries. And the house. I turned to Morales, who submitted the real estate documents and forged signatures. Judge Thorne raised an eyebrow. "This is sloppy," she said, glancing at Everett's attorney. "You allowed your client to file sale documents without confirmation of co-ownership?" His lawyer stammered. Everett looked at his shoes. The judge issued a firm ruling. All assets frozen pending investigation. Everett was barred from selling or removing any property from our shared residence. Furthermore, the court set a follow-up evidentiary hearing in 10 days to determine financial misconduct. But the best moment came after the session. As we were walking out, Everett tried to catch my arm. "Maeve, can we talk?" I didn't even look at him. "We already did. You just didn't realize it was the last conversation." And I walked away. That afternoon, back at Harold's, he poured me a neat bourbon and grinned. He didn't see that coming. "No," I agreed. "But he'll see what's coming next." Because freezing him wasn't the end. It was only the start of the reckoning. 10 days later, I walked back into that same courtroom, this time not with quiet resolve, but with iron certainty in my steps. Everett sat at the table, pale and stiff, his once smug lawyer now replaced by someone clearly brought in at the last minute. Probably cheaper. Probably just as reckless. My attorney, Mr. Morales, handed over the final piece of our case. Phone records, bank transfers, a notarized statement from the notary who unknowingly witnessed Everett's forged signature on the house documents, and video evidence from my neighbor's security camera. Everett loading family heirlooms into his SUV in the dead of night. The judge read through everything in silence. When she looked up, her voice was calm but cold. Mr. Ellis, your actions demonstrate a calculated and deceitful effort to remove your wife from her own assets during a time when she was physically absent due to work. You filed false claims, committed financial fraud, and attempted to liquidate shared property for personal gain. Everett opened his mouth, but the judge raised a finger. No more excuses. The court hereby awards full ownership of the primary residence to Mrs. Ellis, along with exclusive rights to all remaining marital assets. Spousal support is denied. Furthermore, this matter is referred to the district attorney's office for possible criminal charges related to forgery and fraud. Bang. Gavel down. Game over. Everett stood there blinking. His world collapsed in one ruling. The house was gone. The assets frozen and soon to be transferred. Even his reputation, once puffed up with pretense and lies, was in shambles. I walked out of the courthouse and into the Houston air, no longer heavy with burden. For the first time in a year I felt light. 6 months later, Halcyon Technologies was thriving under my leadership. Yes, I'd accepted the board's offer. Yes, I was now CIO on my terms. Vanessa had been promoted, Luis was heading the new cybersecurity division, and we'd signed 3 new major enterprise clients based on the stability and vision of our rebuilt systems. But more than that, I had reclaimed my life. I sold the old house, donated every piece of furniture Everett ever picked out, and bought a 2-story loft near Buffalo Bayou. Something with clean lines, lots of light, and no ghosts. On weekends, I hosted game nights and wine tastings with my team. Laughed again. Slept deeply. I wasn't rebuilding the past. I was creating something entirely new. Everett, as far as I knew, took a job in another state. Word had it the DA was still reviewing the forgery charges. I didn't need to follow up. I didn't care. One Friday evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, I sat on my rooftop terrace, a glass of wine in one hand and a hardcover book in the other. My phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa. Client just renewed for 3 years. You're a legend, Maeve. I smiled. They tried to erase me, replace me, underestimate me. But in the end, they handed me the pieces I needed to build something better. And I did. Because I wasn't just the woman they tried to discard. I was the architect of their downfall, and the designer of my own future.